All right, session number 9 on the intermediate flight development, human factors or decision making. FAA has been emphasizing this for a good while. Back in the early days of aviation, most accidents were caused by failure of the equipment, basically engine failures, wings falling off, stuff like that. But as the technology improved, it became more apparent then that the human factor was the primary issue with incidents and accidents. Accidents are when something actually gets damaged or broken, and an incident is when a rule gets violated or somebody gets scared, basically. You notice here that the plot, of course, they keep statistics, of course. Obviously, there's no doubt about that. They keep statistics, and they've noticed that the most dangerous part of flying, sort of half and half between takeoff and climb, and the landing phase for manned aircraft. Now, they think that, which I think it's reasonable, think that this is going to carry over to unmanned aircraft as well. And you see very low chance of having a problem in cruise or maneuverings, or even less when climb once you get going, or taxiing around on the ground or descending into the airport. But higher workloads, there's a number of issues are cause this to happen. But the main thing is that it's human factor. So let's consider, how do we make decisions? A lot of these accidents and incidents have happened because not good decision making. So they emphasize this, and it's a good thing to consider. So we will consider it. This is another way to look at this chart. See, the blue is basically human factors. Mechanical, yeah, this is up to 18% for manned aircraft to this point. Others unknown. I don't know what that means, but they're not sure what it was. Let's put it that way. The vast majority involves a human being with some kind of failure. Oh, here they get more specific here. Hang on. Yeah, there we go. So weather is a small part of it. Maneuvering, fuel management, descent and approach, other takeoff, climb, and landing is, they're saying 47% here it's the vast majority of accident incidents involve the landing phase. For drones, okay, same thing could be said. You feel somewhat relaxed. Your mission is over. The airplane's coming in to land. You're easily distracted, perhaps, or in conversation, or preoccupied with something. We're not really sure, but there's lots of opportunities at that point for an accident to happen. Okay, so ADM is the abbreviation that you need to remember, is aeronautical decision making. The FAA realizes that if we can improve the pilot's decision making ability, we could improve on accident rate, lower the accident rate, and improve safety. We know that in almost all cases of human error, there's some kind of a chain that leads up to it, right? It's not just one thing, I forgot to, there's a number of things happen. Some kind of distraction is always something involved in that. And, when later, we'll talk a little bit about accident reports. How do we do that? How do we best phrase that? They don't want to hear, I screwed up. That's it. They want to hear, and we need to be able to analyze an accident and say, well, here's the kind of things that led up to this accident. The weather was poor. I didn't sleep well the night before. Somebody else flew the aircraft and didn't tell me about the damage, and I was in a hurry and didn't do the right pre-flight actions. There's a lot of different things that lead up to an accident, okay? ADM, or aeronautical decision making, may break this accident chain. At one point or another, we've hopefully find something and go, yeah, I should have thought of that before the accident happens. So there's a process. Okay, so one of the processes that the FAA suggests is this risk management process is involving aeronautical decision making. They're saying, okay, we'll start out at the top there. Identify your hazards, okay? Identifying hazards, it's akin to being situation aware of what's going on around you. Well, for A, you identify hazards by checking the weather, in your environment, when you get out on the field, checking your environment, even your own physical conditioning, whether you had a good night's sleep, all those are possible hazards. And then you assess those risks. You've got a weather briefing, for example. One of the risks is, let's just say, there's going to be a very windy day, gusty day. Okay, so that's a risk. Is it going to be so windy that I shouldn't fly at all because there was a good chance of me crashing? Or is it, okay, it's a risk, but I think I can handle that if I stay away from buildings and away from the trees and whatever hazard that I can do to minimize that risk. You make those kind of decisions. Then you have to go to the next one down, would be to analyze the controls. In other words, what can you control? Well, you can control your launch site, for example, in the case of windy conditions. You can also control, you may make it to the point where it's just too windy and you want to be able to abort the mission even if you've started it. So you analyze what you might be able to do, and then you make controlled decisions. What are you going to do? You make a firm decision. This is what I'm going to do. This is what we call a plan, by the way. We make a plan. We don't be afraid to change that plan if conditions change, but we do want to have a plan. Just jumping in just launching you off and not thinking about all of these things, not making some plans about what you're going to do, you end up wasting a lot of time perhaps, or worse yet, getting into some kind of a situation where you can't handle. Okay, so you make some decisions about how you're going to do it, then you use your controls, basically go to that position to launch, whatever. But then after that, we monitor the results, right? We want to monitor the results. How is this working out for me? Okay, I get in the air and the drone just bouncing all up over there. Well, this is a photo mission and it's windy and I'm not really getting any steady, I can't get any steady video or steady pictures. So, you know what? I need to abort this mission. So monitor results, continually monitoring results. So you make a decision earlier on that conditions are changing or conditions aren't what you thought they would be, then we need to be monitoring that. And you just go around the circle. You never end up stopping until the flight's over. Okay, so they're saying 6 steps. Okay, that's part of the risk management process. All right, so one of the fundamental principles of risk management and aeronautical decision making is that we don't want to accept an unnecessary risk, right? Not every risk is required, right? You can take those pictures the following day when the wind dies off or whatever the environment, or perhaps you're very tired, you didn't sleep good that night, but you wanted to get this job done this morning. Man, I didn't sleep very good at all. I have all this plan set up to go today, but I'm not really sure I'll be alert enough to be able to handle all of the issues that have to be handled. So maybe I'll just postpone this. So not every risk is required, although risk is sometimes required. A general principle in life is that there's always going to be some risk. So no flight, of course, has 0 risk. You must accept some risk. You just want to minimize the risk if at all possible. Don't want to accept risks that are not necessary. If you've got to take some risk, but you're going to have to accept some risk. All of life is like that, right? You can't drive home today or go to the store, or you can't actually, everything involves some kind of risk, and we have to accept that. We do accept that. However, there are other issues. For example, you don't want to let others make that decision for you, right? You are the pilot in command, and everything goes back to you. Even your poor decisions or your good decisions, your bad decisions, it all comes down to you as well. Let's say you're working for somebody and they say, man, I just get that job done right now. Well, don't let them make that risk decision for you. You still have to evaluate the risk. You can't blame, oh, my boss said I had to do it today. That's not a valid excuse for, why you got in an accident and did something foolish, right? You want to be aware of that. Pilot's boss say the risk might be, you may be saying it's too high, but you may want to cancel the flight. The boss should not claim the risk is too low or try to require them they can accept the risk for a pilot. Yeah, granted, you might get your rear end fired, But hey, you're still the one end up at the end of the day who's responsible for that. And that's what is part of what being a professional is. Professional doesn't let others make decisions for them. Doesn't matter whether you're a professional doctor, lawyer, pilot, whatever. You are a professional. You need to act like a professional. All right, so there's the general principle here is that you accept the risk when the benefits outweigh the dangers. Okay, here's a picture of a life flight guy. He's going to pick up a skier that's broken his legs or something like that. Yeah, risks are elevated in this situation. Anytime you're doing a life flight aerial ambulance situation, yeah, you're going to have to accept a little more risk. Just imagine what it must be to be a helicopter pilot landing in the middle of an interstate with the wires and all this trees, and it's not a landing site. Nobody's, you're hoping the highway patrolmen have looked around to make sure there's no hidden wires at night or whatever. So lots of risks. It's okay, accept it when the risk, the benefit may outweigh the risk. Fine. Yeah, poor weather possibly is a situation which might be acceptable. No risk, of course, means no flying. We can't do that. Make risk management. Another point that the FAA wants us to understand is that we need to make our risk management part of our planning process at every level. It's not just the beginning before when you're planning the flight. It's not that, but even during the flight, it's a continual process of managing the risk, evaluating the risk, being aware of the risks, and making decisions about it. So here are the principles. Accept no unnecessary risk. Do not let others make the risk decisions for you. Accept risk when the benefits outweigh the dangers, and make risk management part of the ongoing process on every level. Planning, operational, even the ending part of the flight. Okay, so all pilots have to, we made this point, probably made the point, but we must deal with risk. And each pilot is going to be a little different in how they evaluate as well, right? So you're on a team. You're one of the PICs, and another guy's got another drone working with the same company. He's got his. You're just new at the job. You probably want to be a little more conservative about how much risk you accept. This other guy's been doing it for a couple of years. He may accept more risk. It's just experience, and that's okay. Everybody should be able to agree that that's fine. It's not something to get upset about. New pilots are going to make different weather decisions and different decisions in general. More experienced pilot might continue. They're assessing risks based on you assess the risk based on your own skills and abilities and capabilities. And the airplane, of course, has a factor as well, right? If you're flying a Mini 2 and it's really windy, not so good. But if you're flying a Phantom 4 Pro, I've got a lot more power, may be able to handle it. So the aircraft aircraft capability is also a factor that you should consider it as well. Okay, granted that risk assessment are subjective. It's a subjective process. Some people are risk takers, some people are way more conservative, and that's okay. Except the people that are willing to take lots of risk need to be careful that they don't exceed their own capability. Be realistic about your abilities. That's one of the key things that the FAA wants you to understand. It is subjective, right? It involves personal decisions and attitudes. And your attitude in life, in general, in your profession, influences the final assessment. Of course it does. It's inevitable. And there have been identified some hazardous attitudes that can involve and influence our own personal assessment of risk to come. And they want us to understand these particular ones. And one or more of them may apply to you, and I know that one or two of them apply to me. Just being aware of it is going to help. If we understand whatever attitude, this kind of hazard attitude, it might help us to mitigate that particular risk with a sort of what the FAA calls an antidote, right? An antidote is like if you get bit by a poisonous snake, you get an antidote, which is something that counteracts the poison in your body and you live, okay? So recognize our own attitudes. FAA has in fact identified 5 of them that influence decision making on all levels. Okay, the first one, okay, anti-authority. What American doesn't have at least some level of anti-authority? Don't tell me what to do. I know what I'm doing. Okay, think about that now. Why were the rules written for aviation? You must remember they were written in blood because somebody died or there was some accident. Not drones yet. The FAA's being real careful that doesn't happen, but for aviation in general, we're talking about the whole world of aviation. Started out with, well, the Grand Canyon crash, right? The 2 major airliners full of passengers crashed into each other. So they come up with rules about different altitudes and having air traffic controllers given permission to fly and stuff like that. So these rules were written in blood. The antidote for anti-authority attitude is the rules were written for a reason, and they're usually right. They wouldn't still be rules. They'd be changed if it wasn't right. Okay, then the other one is impulsivity. That's basically do something quick without thinking. Yeah, okay, don't we have that sometimes? Sure, we get that. Get in a hurry, I'm just going to get her done. Just get her done. Bo, slow down, not so fast, think about what you're doing. Antidote is there's very few things in aviation that require an immediate action. You have a little bit of time. That's the neat thing about our current crop of drones is you let go of the controls, it just stops and hovers. Oh, that's so nice. Because if it just kept on flying, then we'd have to make a quick decision about that yonder wall or whatever. Okay, another one is invulnerability. Basically, it can't happen to me. That's the disease of the young, I suppose, because they haven't seen very many people die or get injured. But they can happen. Accidents can happen. But that invulnerability attitude is it happens to other people, maybe it ain't going to happen to me. Well, it could happen to you. The antidote is it could happen to you. Okay, another one is macho. The pilot will take risks sometimes to impress others or to show off. Yeah, the famous one is for manned aircraft is you get your pilot's license, you're a brand new pilot, you get your pilot's license. Finally, you can take passengers because you have your private pilot license. Wow, that's good. So you take your girlfriend or your wife or some friend up there flying, and you show them how fancy you can fly, and you make them so airsick that they never want to get in an airplane again. Okay, you're trying to impress them, right? But you didn't. You did exactly the opposite. Well, that's not the point of this hazardous attitude, but I'm just saying that happens. So we're not trying to impress people, not trying to show off. Let's just realize that taking chances can be dangerous, not necessarily, but they can be very dangerous. But macho is a Spanish language name that implies it's a male trait, but it's not. It's men and women are susceptible to that as well. Another one is resignation. This is an odd one. I can't identify with this one, but it's things have gotten so out of hand. Things are just so far out of hand. I just give up, man. It doesn't matter what I do. It's just going to be either good luck or bad luck. Nothing I can do about it. No, the antidote is I'm not helpless. I can make a difference, and you can, even up to the last minute. It is possible to make a difference, or at least you ought to be trying. If you're a professional, you should be continued to try until it is hopeless. It may at a certain point become hopeless, but don't give up before it's time to give up. Resignation is not worth trying. Okay, hazardous attitudes. Everybody has them. Pilot may claim they don't have a macho attitude, but they might take similar risks as a result of some different attitude, right? Hazardous attitudes can be subtle, very subtle. We sometimes do unwise things and we get away with it. And then the situation comes back around a couple months later where we're in the same situation. At the time that the first time we did this, we realized that was sort of silly. But the next time it happens, we go, well, I got away with it that time. I'll do it again. And it tends towards getting worse and worse and worse till we're really making dumb decisions. just because we got away with it before. Well, you might have got away with it just because the circumstances were just right to get away with it. Now things aren't quite as right, and now you're in trouble. You've had an accident or hurt somebody or damaged your drone. Hazardous attitudes can be subtle, and they can change slowly. Again, any of these attitudes can happen to any pilot. It's just being aware of them and admitting to them, and then applying the antidote will help us to avoid accidents, incidents. It's part of being a professional. Okay, let's talk about risk a little bit. Yeah, we have different risks in life. Getting hit by a meteorite, that would be really catastrophic. So you'd put that on that left-hand column, catastrophic. However, what is the odds of that happening? Probably improbable. So you're pretty safe there. That's not a risk that we need to spend a whole lot of time worrying about, right? Driving home tonight in the dark, and it's a little foggy, and there's no moon, and it's hunting season. We hit a deer, and we're doing 65 miles an hour on a single lane road or 2-lane road. Hitting that deer would be, it'd be pretty catastrophic, maybe critical, okay? It wouldn't be, you're probably not going to die, but you're going to mess up your car pretty bad. So it'd be critical. I'd say it's critical. We look at the critical column. Now, is it probable? Yeah. Or is it occasionally? Yeah, it does happen occasionally, because you see dead deer on the side of the road all the time. It's possible, so that's a serious risk. So how do we mitigate that? This is one that we need to work on, right? If it's medium or low, we want to consider it, but if it's serious or high, we definitely want to consider it. What can we do to mitigate that risk? That particular risk, maybe drive a little slower. Yep. Or maybe just try to leave before it gets totally dark and foggy. Maybe there's some other things we might do. Well, even medium ones, severity is marginal, and it's improbable. At least want to consider the possibility. But negligible severity, negligible is like it's not going to be severe at all. It's like hitting. Well, let's see. It may not be a good example. Okay, you're riding a motorcycle, and you have the helmet on, and you've got your little plastic screen in front of your eyes. Not everybody does that, but the plastic screen in front of you, you hit a bug at 60 miles an hour. Yeah. Big deal. It's negligible. You get a little splat on your little plexiglass thing in your motorcycle helmet. No big deal. You go in 60 miles an hour and you don't have that, hitting a bug, depending on the size of the bug, it might jump over to the maybe serious. It could get hit really hard in the head with the bug. But okay, I'm being ridiculous now, but that's just something to think about. Okay, so moving right along, only a few more slides to go. We're almost there. There's other ways that we can mitigate our risk is by going through some kind of a checklist. Checklists are good because they remind us of things that we sometimes forget about. So here's one, the I'm safe checklist. And it starts with, am I sick? Before you even start the day, evaluate yourself. Because sickness, especially, it can degrade your performance, your focus, your concentration. Sure. Medication. Does my medication, you're taking medication for your illness, does it affect my performance, right? If you've got a migraine headache, yeah. Or if you've got a really bad allergy, you're going to take some kind of antihistamine, yeah, that's going to affect your performance, absolutely. Stress is something we don't consider very often, but are you under elevated stress? Remember, there's different kinds of stress, but we'll pass on that for now. But you're struggling with something at work or in your personal life, there's lots of different possibilities, a lot of different kinds of stressors out there. We're all under some kind of stress at all times. In fact, a little bit of stress is actually good for us, but there comes to a point where stress is so bad that it's debilitating, and it's going to affect your judgment. Okay, alcohol, obviously, if you consumed alcohol, you remember the rules, right? 8 hours before you fly, 0.04 blood alcohol level. We don't normally test ourselves before we go flying, but the 8 hours is just a handy judge of well, that's the legal limit. Different people have different reactions, but that's the legal limit. Okay, so fatigue would be the F part of I'm safe. Am I tired or not adequately rested? Okay, there's a difference between getting 6 hours sleep the night before or just driving 12 hours to come to the job site and then jumping out of the thing and trying to fly. That's pretty serious fatigue. Getting 6 hours sleep, that's a little bit tired, but you're okay probably, depending on the person. And emotion, am I emotionally upset or distracted? Some are better than others about emotionally detaching themselves or compartmentalizing their emotions. If you're angry at your significant other, you show up for work and you're preoccupied with that, you're sorry, your risk is enhanced of making of some kind of error. Okay. Okay, there's another checklist too that the FAA comes up with, is the PAVE checklist. Pilot and command, that's that previous checklist, pilot and command. Are you ready? That is, you've checked all those other items. Is the aircraft ready, capable and ready? Is the environment, how's the weather, the terrain, the airport, the airspace, the time of day, all those things as well. And then external pressures. Is there pressure to get the job done? Is your boss or the one you're doing this job for is hovering over you, breathing down your neck, wanting you to get the job done, all right? We don't need that kind of pressure. We either have to, some of us are better at this than others, I get it, but either we probably not want to yell at him and tell him to get lost, but somehow politely, nicely help him to understand that you're not being helpful, or like the sign in the mechanic shop is that the job costs this much, but if you want to stay here with me, it's going to cost more, because it's just I don't need this kind of pressure. So those are just some of those ideas. And again, okay, as a review of those last two slides, I'm safe and PAVE are not the only tools available for aeronautical decision making. Main thing really is to have some kind of a plan or a method that you've developed to identify, assess, control, and evaluate the risks, and then use that plan. Obviously, you can do your own research. There's other different types of risk management tools available out there. Also, as a matter of review, we didn't talk a whole lot about crew resource management, but that's an integral part of this. Crew resource management is an overall term that includes situational awareness, and basically it's the effective use of all available resources out there, which include other human beings, your crew members, your visual observer, and other people in the area, but also involves getting weather briefings, either electronically or over the telephone. It involves, obviously looking around visually, seeing what's out there. YouTube videos can be very useful too. Like, I need to do a survey of this apartment building. I wonder how other people have done it. Okay, so that's all available information. The effective use of it, human, hardware, and information prior to and during the flight to ensure the successful outcome of the operation is called crew resource management. Another aspect of crew resource management is like I said, situational awareness, which is the accurate perception and understanding of the risk factors and conditions for any particular flight. So situational awareness is evaluating all of the risk factors around you, all of the things that are going on, to make good decisions. You need situational awareness to do that. Crew resource management concepts, you do that all phases of the operation. It's not just the thing you do before you fly or only during the flight, but flighting before the pre-flight planning, the inspection, all of that involves using all available resources to accomplish the task. So that's it for that.